everyone, this is going to be our little pepper tutorial with the slices, and it's going to be on the cutting board. So you're going to need the polymer clay colors for your bell peppers. It depends on what you are going to do, whether you're going to do red, yellow, orange, or green, but basically for doing peppers as tiny as we're going to be doing them, you're going to want the color more vivid for the outside than our last ones. You're going to want a mixture of half color, half translucent for the outside. Otherwise it's going to be too pale. For the inside, because during the slices, and especially when you try to look at the inside, the translucent layer is going to be darker because it's sandwiched by the outside color, which is already pretty dark. Now it's a little bit tricky because with the slices you have a bit of a translucent look where the inside of the flesh is much lighter than the outside of the flesh, but if you have too much translucent it will be completely clear on you. So you're going to want to probably do a little bit of a test bake where you roll out some thin, pinch it, sandwich it against your outside color and bake it, and see how the inside color and the outside color look once it's baked, because it is going to bake different. For instance, this color is the same color mixed with the translucent. It looks pink here, but it doesn't bake pink. So sorry about the long introduction. We're going to go ahead and get into it now. So basically you're going to want a lighter shade and then your darker shade. And this is for our little itty bitty slices. So I actually did the math according to the bell peppers that I had, that I cut up in our little study for the bell peppers. And what you're going to want is a strip where the width, or if you're looking at this way, the height, is going to be about 11 millimeters. And I just put the thin layer on top of the thicker layer. Now from here, if you have a lucite clay roller, use it. I do have one. I'll show you what it looks like. This is a lucite clay roller. It's sold in the polymer clay section. But as you can see, for this I'm not even using the pasta roller. We're just trying to get it really nice and thin. And basically the height was like 0.8 of a centimeter. So I have just right over a centimeter. And then what we're going to do, and you're going to do this for whatever colors you want your slices to be in. This is like a dental tool. You can use your, as you see, it's actually easier for me to use that safety pin. I don't see it here now, so we'll just use this tip here. But basically, I rough up just the clear-ish portion, the one that uses translucent more. The top, I try not to rough up. I want that to remain smooth, and I don't want the texture to extend below the bottom, because like if you were to do a cake texture, it might come down past the bottom of your translucent ridge. But you want some good texture in there. So basically, the bottom part is textured, the top part is not. Then you take a super thin slice, and that is on there. Okay, so now it's on my finger. And what I'm going to do is literally a little bit on the inside from the top and the bottom. I place my needle tool, or like I said, it could be a safety pin. In this case, I'm using a dental sort of a tool. And I bend my edge down, and I bend the bottom edge up. So this is pretty much the slice. If they tilt up, then go ahead and press the edges down. If you think they're a little bit too long, you could trim them off. You could also do this on the table. Please, if you are using a blade, do that portion on the table. I just want you to be able to see better because the table is pretty far from the camera. So that would be your bell pepper. Now, this doesn't use a whole heck of a lot of clay, so it's okay if you probably have some trial and error. And if you don't like the color and you want to darken one or lighten the other, you could always just use this as scrap clay for something. So that is our sliced bell pepper. And then I would say just arrange it however you want on your cutting board. I did bake mine first, and then I arranged them and placed them with TLS to bond them to the actual cutting board. So I baked all the bell peppers first flat, and then I put TLS on the bottom of them, arranged them on the cutting board, baked them one more time, and then that's how you see this. Now, something that will make them look more realistic is when you come back after everything's been baked and we finish the other part, you take like the tip of a safety pin or toothpick and you add just a tiny bit of gloss glaze in a couple tiny portions of the translucent area, and that really helps. Okay, so now we are going to look at the half bell pepper. So basically, what you're going to want to do, I'll take a little bit of green. And the bell pepper height for scale for me was 0.8 centimeters. So I take an inside color ball and then I wrap the darker color of the outside around it, seal it up, and trim off all the edges. Now this was really close to how we shape it. Well, it's exactly the way that we shaped the other bell peppers, the larger ones. We just have translucent in the center here. So you're going to want to cover all the translucent shade underneath, and once you do that, you can roll it back in a ball. And let's see if we could do this somewhat fast. I go along the bottom and twist in my index finger to give it the more pepper shape where it's tapered on the bottom, bigger on the top. And then I'm just going to shape it with a head pin here. I've been doing these with toothpicks, but not toothpicks. These I've been doing with safety pins because these are much smaller. So basically I make a little mark in the top, I make a little mark in the bottom. In the top you could decide if you want a bell pepper with 4 sections or 3 sections or how many ever you want. And these are the streaks that come down from the top of the pepper. And then you could even put a quarter mark between each one, like that. And then you do the same thing, matching up the top to the bottom from the sides. Okay, so there we go. Now making the stem was the same. My stems don't have hardly any translucent. It's mostly just like the Spanish oak. I just make a little tiny shape there. So it's just like a little cone shape. And then I pick it up, usually with a little safety pin. But I pick it up, and then I tap it into the little hole we created in the center of the top. walk around, make sure it's attached on each of the sides. And sometimes the stems do break off of the peppers in the store, and so if your pepper breaks off, your pepper stem, not to worry, but since you're tapping it in, you'll still have the pale color of the stem that's like a little different color, so you could still see that there was a stem. Makes it a little bit more realistic. And these babies we put in the refrigerator for a while. Okay. Now I put them in the refrigerator. I took them out this morning when I thought I was going to be able to film. But I will chop them in half. And you can see how there's the translucent inside. And we are basically going to thin these out. So something too that adds to the realism is if you can take almost a pale white and a slight bit of green with just a tiny bit of translucent, you could add a little bit to the center. But let me show you how we do this part. So basically, you try to hold it very, very carefully, and you start digging out on two sides. You start digging out from the left side and the right side to create the little cavities of the bell pepper body. And I do them in little streaks because that's going to help with the texture of the inside of the bell pepper too. It looks, if you actually even look at the photo that I have for my other bell peppers, the real ones in real life that were sitting on a cutting board, you can actually see those little, that texture of the inside of the bell pepper. But I just start digging this out. Now if they get too soft, as you can see this one's distorting on the one side, you can reshape it a little bit by adjusting the angle, and then you could come back and continue to dig out those centers. But this is how we do it. I just continue to dig, dig, dig. If it gets a little too soft, you could even put it back in the refrigerator and come back and dig some more. Here's another one that I had started. I thought it was just a little bit deeper, so as you can see how I'm really digging in there. And as I dig in there, I will start taking the center and moving the raised ridge just for the raised part in the center. I try to make sure that I make that as narrow as possible once it actually hits the very center of our pepper. So it really ends halfway, and then the whole bottom area is hollowed out. But you can see how I'm really getting that hollowed out there. And the trick with this is just it being somewhat firm. So I would suggest not doing this with Sculpey. Sculpey will be too soft. You're going to want to do it with the Primo or even the Fimo. But I just continue to hollow it out. Like I said, if it gets too soft, you could throw it back in the fridge. It has some give, so you can readjust the shape as you go along. You just have to be very gentle. So you can see, and there is that. I'm hoping I wasn't blocking that. I'll have to watch this. So that is our little pepper. You see how I do it? I just continue going, pulling it out at the bottom. If it's wanting to hold on to the bottom, if you're very, very gentle, you could rock it forward and slice down, and that cleans up the edge again. I'll bring this here so you can see. So that cleans up the very bottom of the edge, giving it a nice clean cut shape again. Okay, now I'll show you this one again because I have this all hollowed out. So you can see I hollowed it out very deeply. Now for the seeds. So the seeds were basically a tiny, tiny touch of green with a little bit of white and ecru and a tiny bit of translucent. And I roll this little sucker into a very thin snake. And with how tiny these are, And I mean, they are super, super tiny seeds. As you can see, the whole cutting board fits here. If you see my fingers, look at how tiny those little itty bitty seeds are. So basically, I don't worry about shaping those so much. You can, but I just take tiny, tiny slices. I'd suggest doing this on your paper. I'm doing this on my finger because it's a little closer to the camera. I remove it, and then I roll it into a little ball. And then I find it easier to do this with our safety pin, but I pick it up, the seed, on the edge. Not that you can really see that here. And the seeds like to ball up right along the center. So I would place a few right along the center here. And when they cook, they're going to cook more whitish, so they'll definitely stand out. Now, if you wanted to make it look more realistic, you can take a little bit more white, and you can use the color of the pepper itself or a little bit of green, because I've seen them both ways, but you use a little bit more white in it, and you create a little triangle and add it just to the center, going up to the ridge where it meets the stem, and you smooth it on. If you do that, you'll get that nice bright interior right at, you want it just in the little triangular area where it's the little center portion that comes out. You'll want a little bit of the whiter color right in that little area, that little triangular area. And you just want to smooth it on. It will brighten it, and that's pretty much it. So those are our peppers, and the trick is being patient with digging out the little body of the bell. And I do it in little up and down motions. And you just continue along. You could also dig from the bottom up if you feel that the bottom area has too thick a flesh. But you just continue, and it bakes much darker because it's surrounded by your darker color. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Here is the result again. So as you can see, I probably have about 6 seeds to 8 seeds in there. It's seeds mostly around the interior, 1 on the bottom, 1 clinging on the side, and you may even want to put a couple on the cutting board for extra realism. And then you want to put just a tiny bit of dabs, little tiny, tiny, tiny specks of gloss varnish on the interior, just to capture the texture, and you don't want it to swim in the gloss varnish because it won't look realistic. But if you add just a bit in the right places, it will look good. And that is it, everyone. So hope that you enjoyed this. I'd even suggest maybe making a little tiny knife, because to me it looks like it might be a little bit naked without the knife. A knife might be a good addition, or if you have room like me, you could even add a couple more peppers in different colors. But that's how we do them all. So you just need a paler color of pepper, and then the outside color of the pepper, and then the green. And so you can do this with a yellow, you could do this with the orange or the green that we have shown. Thank you so much, and if you want color ratios and recipes, let me know, and I could do another document for them. Thanks, guys.